is January 9th, 2022. Welcome to Native Calgarian. Oki, Naganago, Mako Che Chestakoma Aki. Hi, my name is Red Thunderwoman. My married English name is Michelle Robinson, and I use she and her pronouns. Native Calgarian is being recorded on the lands of the Niitsitapi, which is the Blackfoot Confederacy. The Blackfoot south of the opposed US-Canadian border are the Blackfeet, and north of the border are the Siksika, Gunai, and Bagani of the Confederacy. These lands are also Treaty 7, signed September 22nd, 1877, with signatures that include the Blackfoot Confederacy, the Wesley Chiniki Bearspaw Nations of the Stoney, and the Dene from Tsuut'ina Nation. I acknowledge all First Nation, Métis, Inuit status and non-status across Turtle Island as the keepers of these lands. All non-Indigenous are treaty partners with the government signing on your behalf. I honor the Blackfoot as the elders and members have been kind to me on my Red Road journey. Elder Red Crane taught me how to pronounce my spirit name. I was born in Calgary, or in Blackfoot, Mokinstis as Michelle Elliott, an English name which has afforded me privilege in an English colonial world. My mother is Northern Slavey Dene or Sat2 Dene, but my Indian Act imposed status card by the Canadian government says Yolnaz Dene. My father is so Canadian. I am a daughter of the Mayflower and a daughter of the American Revolution while having an Indian Act imposed status card. My Dene lineage roots me in the land of the Hare. I'm a native to Turtle Island, and my Dene Nation is a visitor to this area of Clincho Tine Intahe in Sat2 Dene, meaning Many Horse Town, named after the Calgary Stampede. Land acknowledgements are critical for creating a safer space for Indigenous, as well as honoring the host as a guest and acknowledging your role as a treaty partner. My humblest apologies to the Blackfoot elders and language keepers as we try to learn proper pronunciation. Any mistakes or misinterpretations will be on me. I encourage questions as soon as possible so that misunderstandings can be cleared up. I do not speak on behalf of all Indigenous. I just share what I know as I walk down my red road. My Patreon account is Native Calgarian, where you can pledge and support. Thank you to my previous donor who can afford to give. Thank you to those who cannot afford to give. Love to hear from you. Actions. Also, giving a review helps on whatever medium you're listening from. I have a YouTube channel that you can go and subscribe. You can go to nativecalgarian.com for the latest podcasts and pin posts on social media. So lots to discuss today. I did want to say tomorrow is our book club. So the book that we're going to be discussing is Volume 3 of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, the Métis Experience. And I've actually learned something from this already that I'll share tomorrow. And if you're interested in our next book club, it's The Act of Genocide by Karen Stote, Colonialism and the Sterilization of Aboriginal Women. So super excited for those. I wanted to give a shout out to my friend Adam who stopped by. He was giving me some care. So he gave me Kenny as a fascist stickers, I love Taylor McNally button, along with some magnets that we've already scooped up and put away. And I love this. So for folks who may not know, this is like Alberta's kind of logo, only they changed it to a more appropriate, gifted me. They gave me some food, some handmade bags, and they're so strong and sturdy and soft and beautiful. So I feel really blessed. And I just want to say, I ask for donations, and it's just shocking to me that people are still giving me. And we had a wonderful conversation about mental health and how hard it is to just get up. But there's this really great TikTok that I came across. So I want to give a shout out to Red Sage One, and he has a hashtag. His name is Andrew. He posted it 5 days ago. Hashtag positive vibes. Hashtag no motivation. Hashtag comedy. Anyway, in it, he basically says, when people ask me how I'm doing, I say I'm a lobotomized sloth with the energy to go with it, with no motivation. And it just cracked me up. And I just think whenever anybody asks me how I'm feeling, that's exactly what I'm going to share. But, there's lots of things to discuss. So the last podcast that we put up was the day before New Year's Eve, so that we would have a New Year's Eve show. And I hope some of you had a chance to listen to it, but so much stuff has happened. So I thought I'd do a quick podcast to try to discuss some of the things that I've seen that was absolutely insane to me. I think the number one thing, my dad was like, that's not happening. I'm like, it's fucking happening. There's a coalition between Alberta, Saskatchewan, Ontario, and New Brunswick to start harnessing nuclear energy. And actually the CBC reported it, and they titled it Province's Next Steps on Building Small Nuclear Reactors to Come in the New Year. And I can't with nuclear reactors. I will coalition. It's called Nuclear Waste War. And they have an email. So I just implore you all, if you are against this, like too, with all these abandoned wells and pipelines, you know, you have an earthquake when it comes to geo, you know, this is the fucking problem. I can't even, like, I'm conservatives making inept, I can't even have this conversation. And I don't understand how more Albertans and more folks, killer radiation, it explains, you know, they in city apologized so much pain of cancers and such because they didn't care against nuclear energy. I can't even stress it enough. So I'm begging people because we need everyone to stop. I was thinking of there's a stupid scene where named after them. They say they're like, we're for the goddamn jobs the comet's gonna bring on Earth, and everybody's like, I don't care, it's going for that. And honestly, I feel like the nuclear I don't have more people speaking out against it. We're gonna never. They can't organize a pandemic. They can't organize taxes. They can't organize all of the abandoned wells and pipelines. These people are so stupid. Thing we could agree on. Can it please be that small? Because again, you need education in any how we would have anyone qualified to even run these things would be outside our bubble, our jurisdiction. So I remember when Fukushima happened, or was it Fukushima? So Nagasaki. Oh shit. Okay, where the two atomic bombs are what the detonated apologized for World War II. But disaster that happened over across measurement that they had, the stations that they had out on the west coast. Everybody's going to be okay with this anyway. That we're all on the same side. Cloudy remembrance of Hiroshima and Nagasaki nuclear disaster. From Sylvan Lake had a little boy named Trucker who died of a really rare cancer, and I blame that nuclear reaction that happened. Anyway, another thing that is a kind of a big deal that happened since my last podcast to this one is that tentatively there is an agreement between the federal government and Cindy Blackstock's organization, the First Nation Caring Society, about the First Nations that have never been proper and adequate funded child services across the country. But and it was wonderful to see Cindy Nipinak. She's or Nipinak Waterhouse. Really lucky to have gotten to know her through the Liberal Party, and she spoke really well. And I hope that people hold the governments to account. But that here's the thing that's eating at me, and it's that regardless of assuming the best intention of the federal government, we all know child welfare and healthcare is still jurisdiction of the provinces, and we haven't addressed the racism in nurses, doctors, and healthcare. The calls to action for the TRC have not been implemented in any capacity, and these are the frontline people that are like, a goddamn squaw's having a baby. We've got to get her and her kid immediately into social services. And they're the ones apprehending our fucking children, let alone the teachers and, you know, education staff that are like, oh my God, a native looked at me wrong, so I'm going to apprehend their kids. So until we address the racism that's in all of these institutions, it's just not going to fucking matter. So I'm really worried that this is done, yes, but what does that really mean? I mean, this book, An Active Genocide, has been out for how long? You know, the calls to action have been out for how long? We just have so much anti-Indigenous hate. I actually have a story that is probably the most disgusting thing I've come across in a long time. So huge trigger warning to anybody listening. This is in Blackfoot, Idaho. There's a sheriff, an elected sheriff, that this is a crazy ass story. So this is really violent. So lots of trigger warning here. Apparently, the white settler town right by a reservation has this annual tradition. Cute as a button, so wholesome. They take handprints, and every Thanksgiving they write encouraging message of love. You know, oh, you are cared for, your neighbor. Thank you for being part of the community, whatever. And the Girl Guide troop goes out and they take one of these handprints and they put it on the door and they tape it up and they, you know, ring the doorbell, run away, and watch the person open it and look at it. Except when they got to the sheriff's house, who's been elected forever, so he fucking knew this happens. He literally like had a cocked gun at the kids, the girls in their stupid little, you know, Girl Guide uniform, and threatened to kill them. So they ran back into the van. Then he found the driver, the you know, chaperone, pulled her out of the driver's seat by her hair and made her go on the ground, cock the gun while pressing it to the back of her head. And that happened. And anyway, so apparently he's had his guns taken away. And I'm like, he said the most racist shit I've heard in a long time. And he's elected sheriff of this area. So obviously they all feel this way because it's really close to well, it's all part of the Blackfoot Confederacy. So anyway, said this stupid shit, and everybody there obviously thinks that. I mean, it was just in Lethbridge, and Lethbridge Herald just printed the stupidest racist thing that I had reshared if you're on Twitter. Um, so like the area of hate against Indigenous people is so strong here and just south of the border that it seemed perfectly acceptable for him to say, "Oh, I live right by a reservation and I get people do this all the time." So literally the only reason why it mattered this time was because probably a white woman, but not an Indigenous person. And the fact that he felt so comfortable saying that publicly, so gross. So I don't know how many Indigenous people he's done that to and gotten away with it, but it's disgusting. So anyway, that's happening. But bringing it back to Canada, I've seen this great tweet coming out of Wet'suwet'en. We are currently having on-duty RCMP officers catcalling Indigenous women at night on the Highway of Tears. This is what happens when you import officers with extreme anti-Indigenous ideologies. Is this the environment the BC NDP and Nathan Cullen want to foster in Northern BC? We know the answer is yes. We know Canada has been perfectly okay with this forever, but I wanted to highlight it because a lot of the folks who listen to my podcast, there's different demographics when it comes to my podcast. There are people that follow me on Twitter, people who follow me on Facebook, but there are actual people who actually listen. And that's who I'm trying to talk to right now. And I want to say thank you for listening. I can't believe anyone listens to me. So every time I read the numbers of the people who have downloaded it, I just say thank you from the bottom of my heart. But anyway, for those who are listeners and not necessarily following me on Twitter, you might have missed that retweet. And this is still out there. This was posted on January 7th. This is our reality, as much as people don't want to recognize it. Another thing that's really upsetting is no matter where you are across the country, there are no ambulances anymore. I've seen the CTV news update that said that apparently there was a released internal graph showing that they know in the next 14 days, Alberta will be seeing more than 1,500 COVID-19 patients hospitalized. And it got leaked somehow to the media, which is fine and dandy by me. I don't care. We all know it's really bad here. And basically, so my parents got sick on Monday, Tuesday. And unfortunately, they have no way to know if it's COVID. Like this all going to be working and such. And I knew we were going to need them, but we weren't any years of COVID anyway. Everyone is sick of this stupid thing. I am, but that doesn't mean we should quit being diligent. There's a lot of on Twitter, a lot of parents worried about their kids going to school tomorrow, and I don't blame them because there hasn't really been any different protocols put in forward, and not all the kids are vaccinated. So this is where we are in the pandemic. Fifth wave, we're all tired, we're all exhausted. We have a new variant that's easily spreadable, but it is what it is. I wanted to give a shout out to there's one of the colleagues on our Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women, Girls, and Two-Spirit Committee here in Calgary, Natalie St. Denis. She is at the U of C. And then Alicia Tuber, she's one of my sweat sisters, and she's also the spirits. Anyway, they were talking about the lack of culturally sensitive mental health supports for our youth. And my friend Alicia said that every time that she's had to deal with AHS on these mental health issues, she's expected to give trauma, et cetera, et cetera. And she made the point that, in that our moment of crisis, that distance from anybody. So anyway, the CBC and I bet people don't listen or care, who genuinely do. And online, I'm sued like Dr. C, tireless work that she put into this. How many generations before me, like the 4 women that worked so hard for C30. We have the new S3 bill that I hope my daughter will get status. Of course, this is not a problem any of my brothers, uncles, male cousins will ever have because they're male. And everybody likes to think that sexism was somehow taken out of the Indian Act, but it wasn't. But it's racist, so what do you say anyway? So these are just some when it comes to our book club. By the way, pass as quick as I do YouTube, you'll be able to just immediately upload it so that folks who missed our book club can watch it. Um, and then when I have like some time where, I'm definitely not putting up an episode for whatever reason, then I'll try to get one of my past book clubs as an episode so that folks can hear it. Um, so I apologize. I wish I could do them all quick enough, but I only have so much capacity. Um, so I have a new job that I started last month, and so I got $100 Christmas bonus. I had an hour and a half extra overtime, and I unemployment most weeks minimum wage. I make a little more, but women in Alberta are paid 20%, and then racialized women because one of those can do. So working my daily after work, this is funny, for a monthly bus pass, really get in the door and not 30. So that's how great. I really encourage you to come to it anyway, because we'll make these books, like they're really good. And for folks who may not be able to join our booktube channel for some of the book clubs that we did, but killer volume, and like this page, I learned more about my so I encourage folks to pay attention to that too, and to have listened to me up to this moment from the bottom of my heart. Um, when it happens, I always make sure Elena, she has been houseless for a while now, 7 months, German dog, puppy energy places. But my friend Chaz Smith of Be the Change YYC was just shelters don't, women won't leave their abusive spouses in stupid shelters, angry on me, and they were given money to work, angry this to every family. But I know we're in Alberta. What you like, we don't care about humans, let alone their moment this week, because his they were wrapped, and because for folks who don't know, Alberta, a cold spell. I mean, like -50 wind. She doesn't care about homeless people. So now they're trying to rip down the tent city. That's that these drop-in centers are like military. Look at everybody, the rally of Inclusive Canada. I hope that actually are, and it's like here they don't, nobody did. And I feel like I've said this so many times on the show, and landlords don't accept unemployment. Our homeless shelters are not safe places, kind places to be. And those who need mental health supports are not getting them, from, children, babies, all the way up to adults. The opioid crisis is in chaos. We have the COVID issue. I don't know what more to say. I see cops, transit police, and Calgary police on the C train station, and I don't know what to say anymore. It's just hell. And I mean, everyone knows it's hell, but it's just been so amplified the last little while. And I know I have it good compared to a lot of people, which is super shitty, because I don't wish this on anybody. But I can tell you, a lot of people have been asking about my daughter. She's doing okay. We don't have that. So for folks who don't understand, COVID-19 is just rampant here. There's a variant, Omicron, that is just rampant here. And I tried to discuss a little bit of what my parents were going through. And they're white and getting treated this way. And I mean, the system was never set up for me and my family, whether it's education or health, but even more so now during this pandemic, it's not set up for anyone. The system is completely collapsing, both in healthcare and education. And at my job, like, we hardly make anything more than minimum wage. So of course we're not going to fight these stupid anti-maskers. We're like, it's my goddamn freedom. So it's just a matter of time, I'm sure, until we all get stupid COVID too, but we don't have any health supports to support us through this, just like everybody else. So nobody's allowed to have a heart attack or get in a car accident, because if you do, you're going to die, because there's no hospital beds and there's no ambulances to come get you. So that's where we're at. This is happy 2022. So be able to, that this podcast is given solutions for them to create a safer space for Indigenous people of color, those with disabilities, LGBTQ2+ to speak. Oh, I should give a shout out to Canada for finally outlawing conversion therapy. I mean, it's like the exact same thing of Indian residential school, just this like demeaning brainwashing of trying to demean who you are as a person. Same fucking thing, under the same guise of, oh, Jesus loves you. I don't think so. Anyway, I want to say thank you to Cheryl Ward, Chelsea Branch, and Alicia Fridkin of heretohelp.bc.ca for publishing What is Indigenous Cultural Safety and Why I Should Care About It. If folks cared and actually Googled Indigenous cultural safety, you'd actually find a lot more resources now. Their work in those cultural action tools have given a lot of settlers that work that they can do for reconciliation. I'm just lucky enough to highlight and repeat it here. So internalized racism or lateral violence is another form of violence that Indigenous marginalized folks experience by the structure of racism. RacialEquityTools.org has so many resources, but internalized racism by Donna Bevans is one to check out. So if you are a new immigrant, if you are a first, second generation Canadian, if you are Black, if you are any race whatsoever, if you are Indigenous, please learn about internalized racism. I jokingly say, oh, these fucking squaws, because I've kind of talked about it and dealt with it and talked about what internalized racism is. I am not a squaw. I am a squaw is the most derogatory term you can possibly use, but I jokingly say it because I know a lot of racists say it without concern. They are dehumanizing us still to this day. And for folks who follow me on TikTok, I've been talking about Squaw Valley in California being problematic, and it looks like there might finally be some movement there where they might actually change that name, which is ridiculous. So anyway, internalized racism is something we all have to deal with. It's really hard when we're in trauma, have intergenerational trauma. It makes family situations really hard too, or having friends with racialized people in general. Anyway, a lot of trauma there, but for folks like myself on a healing journey, right now is a hard time because of the stupid pandemic and all the things that it's brought to the surface. But even prior to the pandemic, a lot of us were working on our healing journey, and I encourage all racialized people to continue that work. For other folks, do's and don'ts for bystander intervention by American Friends Service Committee, what to do when you actually see racism. Those are cultural safety tips. Indigenous have been talking about our issues, sharing our traumas and reports, commissions, and public hearings, which could be regularly disregarded. No more. Honor our words. Honor the treaties. Listen to politicians and their policies and platforms. They don't recognize the marginalized in their budget. With Gender Equity Plus, they're cutting violence prevention programs and services, Indigenous education, uterus health choices, gay-straight alliances, proper mouth or mask wearing stuff, vaccines, testing, lack of human rights for migrants, immigrants, folks with disabilities. Know that your vote to that party directly negatively impacts marginalized people. Demand that they implement the Truth and Reconciliation Commission calls to action, the recommendations of the Royal Commission on Aboriginal Peoples, the multiple reports about child welfare reform and violence prevention. There are also 231 calls to justice from the National Inquiry on Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women, Girls, and Two-Spirit. Denying these reports is a form of abuse called gaslighting. Our people are experiencing extreme oppression in the justice, educational, and health institutions, with multiple reports that say the same thing. Demand change from these election platforms and politicians. They don't understand colonialism, racism, privilege, sexism. They literally have zero business running. Ableism, I should put in there, should be understood by all parties, local politicians, community organizations, sports clubs. Oh, that's another thing happening right now. PEI's hockey club just banned this white guy for speaking up against the racism his friend experienced and what they did, so they banned him for life. Even Katie Lang was like, what the hell? Anyway, should be understood by all parties, local politicians. A really great article I said out loud was Truth Before Truth, How Non-Indigenous Canadians Become Allies. Literally, there's so many articles out there now. I don't understand how it can't be better at this. If you're experiencing emotional distress after anything we talked about today and want to talk, call the First Nation and Inuit Hope for Wellness helpline at 1-855-242-3310. It's toll free, open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. On their website, hopeforwellness.ca, they have a text option as well. It's more related to missing and murdered Indigenous women, girls, and Two-Spirit. For immediate assistance, you can call 844-413-6649. That's also open 24/7. For non-Indigenous, there are distress lines in your area, usually a functioning 211. You can also call 833-456-4566. 60 Scoops here in Alberta. There's a website and an organization through Adam Northpagan called 60 Scoop Indigenous Society of Alberta, which you can find at www.ssisa.ca. If you see or experience racism, you can report it at Act to End Racism or text 1-587-507-3838. Again, that was started by the Asian community, and they were just recently. The first protest I had back here in Calgary was at McDougall in the cold weather, and it was to stand in support of the stupid fucking premier. Was like, oh, we don't know what that soup's coming out of, whatever he said is asshole. And I'm so racist I can't even. So anyway, they had to have a rally not just in Calgary but also in Edmonton. I tried to promote it the best I could. Anyway, other resources for folks. The Trans Lifeline in Canada. You can call 877-330-36, or sorry, let's try that again. 877-330-6366. The Trevor Project has another line, 1-866-844-7386, and that's more for LGBTQ plus youth. They have a peer support line as well. There's also the Kids Help Phone at 1-800-668-6868, but go to lifevoice.ca for more crisis supports, and especially for LGBTQ2+. Violence is my everyday reality. Every Indigenous generation has faced it. That's why I started this podcast. To speak freely without interruption, without tone police, without leadership shaming, without gaslighting questions. On TikTok, man, I'm just blocking, deleting people left, right, and center because, both on Twitter and Facebook, I have like 20,000 people blocked. But TikTok's a new medium for me, so I get to deal with all of those folks. So anyway, I've been trying to delete those bastards. A lot of gaslighting. Anyway, folks who know nothing about Indigenous, know nothing about colonialism, know nothing about the constant surveillance of Indigenous people, our protests, our vigils, and our rights, microaggressions, people dealing with internalized racism, folks who are gatekeepers and survive off the status quo, folks who are so in their trauma that they stop people from doing work and depleting personal resources. Internal, external racism is an everyday reality for Indigenous people. How sad I needed a podcast for a boundary to be heard, but here we are. Anyway, thank you to my ancestors and my mom and my granny for what strength looks like through your example. I want to thank my dad for teaching me to be strong and blunt, my mom for showing me what a proud culture is through her Austrian family roots, teaching me to be a proud Calgarian. Just through her, I'm a second generation proud Calgarian. And side note, she went to Bishop Grandin here in Calgary, and she said, like, her is a white immigrant from Austria. The crap she put up with then. Anyway, I don't know how we still publicly fund Catholic schools across Alberta, but whatever. Thank you to my husband, Darcy, for producing and editing the show, on top of being my husband, my childhood friend, the father of our child, and my support down the red road. He has witnessed decades of sexism and racism. To our child, who we are blessed to learn from daily. We are honored you chose us. You give me daily accountability to be a better and a stronger person. I hope my daughter and my family will be proud in the future of me trying to discuss these present day issues. My Patreon account is Native Calgarian, where you can pledge and support. Thank you, previous donors, for showing your support. If you value listening or watching and can afford to give, thank you. To those who cannot afford to give, I'd love to hear from you at nativeyyc@gmail.com, where you can send in your comments or your questions. You can go to my YouTube channel and subscribe, or go to nativecalgarian.com for any of the latest podcasts. And if you follow me on social media, most of my pinned posts are the latest podcast. And I'd like to end by giving side eye to those Calgary rabbits. You're lucky I'm not Tradish. My beautiful cousin would respond, or you'd be in my dish. Thank you so much, folks, for listening, for supporting me over our tough time. I think we're doing better, but one thing at a time, one day at a time. And I hope you all stay safe during this ridiculousness. of this COVID-19. It's just unbelievable what we're all doing here. So I am thinking of you and wishing you and your family the best, and especially if you're um, being forced in that position of putting your kids in these schools or going to work because you're an essential worker. It's ridiculous, but I'm thinking about you. So thank you all for listening and being a part of my world. I'm grateful to have someone to share it with.